What up, world, and welcome to another episode of Black Nerd Friday. I'm your host, Neal, and you know what time it is. You know what that letter is up there. You know what that K stands for. That's Konkret Comics. And what are we reviewing? Oh, yes. If you don't know now, you know Decimation Earth. Okay, this is hot fire. Wait a minute before I even start talking. Camera on me, because I'm definitely about to show some pictures. Because y'all ain't come look at. Can we talk? I was telling the creator, look at this artwork. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me. This is why I need to get my PDF game up so I can stop playing with my life. So look at this. Look, y'all, do you see that? That's high quality right there.
You know what? I gotta say, when people do black and white, right? I feel like some people will say, oh, they just didn't want to do color because it's expensive. It's like, nah, do you understand the amount of power and emotion that you can convey with a good black and white? Sometimes it's just so much more contrast with it. So when it's done right, like they did in this, I'm like, oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Come on,
makes it feel more menacing,
I can say, like, look, I can say this and don't tell the creator this, but normally when I look at black and white, books, I kind of get a little bored. But for this one, they stay, involved. So.
But see, I think
the creator, okay?
I love it. And if you don't know, now you know. But first and foremost, we got to introduce some Konkret comic people. Definitely, the man in the corner right here. I'm gonna get spotlight on him one time. Yes, it is the great himself, Mr. Onaji.
Oh, Naji with the pineapple top.
Come on, man. His teammate was talking crazy about him, so he definitely
he said, "I have to fix it. I got to get right for the camera."
I appreciate that greatly. And then we have the creator himself. Like, come on, can we talk about this wonderful book? All right, and it's only chapter 1, so it did piss me off that he kind of just left it on a cliffhanger. Mr. David Rucker himself, I at least thought this was gonna be like a 40-page thing when I got it, and I'm like, man, this ain't even 40 pages, man.
Hey, listen, he had to wet the palate, get you salivating for it. You get what I'm saying? See, you don't understand, D. You got to understand. You got to get
it's Konkret Comics. I got you, and you know who I got? I got my co-host with me. She finally showed up. What up, Sudz?
Showed up. He's on time. First up, we're not even gonna put me out like that, okay? Because I have always been on time for every single show that I have been on. Unlike somebody who is taking over for this month, but we ain't gonna point no fingers.
The 99 and 2000,
there we go.
Over.
Up in that corner, you see that look?
In the corner.
Boom.
But anyway, as we usually do here at Black Nerd Fridays, before we get into it, we will talk about it real quick. I want to say. Shout out to our co-host, Mr. Refine. He is a Buffalo native. He did go to the horrific white supremacist, terroristic, domestic terrorism, however they want to call it. He definitely went there to see friends and people, and he's having a rough time. So our prayers go out to everybody. Heart go out to y'all. And only thing I'll say on that, because I won't linger on it too much, is that if you need an actual news source that's not going to constantly repeat the same things that white males who own those news medias want you to know, you need to be watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. You need to be going to the Black Star Network, because Roland Martin Unfiltered is the only black owned, 100% black owned news media company that literally spent not 1 hour, not 2 hours, but 2 days going through everything and showing every person that died. And so shout out to Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we, like I said, our heart go out to y'all. And so on that not somber note, because we are moving forward, regardless of what happens, we are going to be talking about Decimation Earth, which reality actually, as I'll transition to it, because I like to segue. This Decimation Earth towards the end, chapter 1, is talking about some real stuff, and we'll get into it. But before we do that, as we always do here on Black Nerd Fridays, and I hope Anaji remembered this time, we always ask the question, what you drinking?
I'm drinking.
We're gonna bring the camera to
tropical vibe. So
tropical. Okay. Yeah, my social media manager got that. My on and off again social media manager.
Normally I like the watermelon, and I'm saving like my calories for the weekend before I drink because there's a brunch I got to go to.
Okay, so, now we're talking.
Yeah, so brunches in Atlanta get a little lit, so I'm waiting.
Yeah, going up. And David, we didn't tell you, we didn't give you the protocol, so I'm sorry about that. But did you bring anything to drink? He got okay, he got water.
I am drinking vitamin water.
Shout out.
Electrolytes.
Yeah, drinking vitamin water. What flavor is this?
Shout out 50 Cent.
He put something in his mouth and don't even know what it is.
Citrus.
He's not gonna know what flavor.
Tropical citrus.
Suds, what you drinking now?
So I'm gonna do a really a kind of a funny thing with this. I'm drinking a kind of a lemon lime derivative. Very, very interesting. It's supposed to be like made from the waters of mountain. It's called Mountain Dew.
We call that hillbilly juice in Ohio.
Yeah, we gotta block this out.
Gamer fuel is what I like to call it because I'm a huge gamer. But I gotta say, this is really good. I mean, they got a good amount of caffeine in it, but I wanted to see what type of kick it is. We'll see when I open it up what flavors and aromas I get off of it.
Mountain Dew holler at us for a sponsorship. That's all I got to say.
Hey, listen, I would totally take it because I don't just drink this just because this has been a long family tradition. I'm just gonna say, but look at that pour. Oh,
wow.
Look at that pour.
and the test beaker.
And my scientist glass, my Pyrex, just saying.
Suds, I can't believe it. I can't believe we up here doing promos. Really we're not doing this for free, Mountain Dew, so you need to pay us. All right, holla at us. For real. And for me, shout out again, Brew Your Story. This was in the Jubilee. Again, Juneteenth is coming again. I know a lot of people in different states already was celebrating. Shout out to all the Black people like in Texas and everything. But this is the beer that I created with Oak Park Brewing Company called Old Fashioned Strong Ale. And this thing is 13%. Hold on, baby girl, daddy's talking. This is 13%.
I'm working.
This is orange peel, orange zest. And this thing was brewed and this thing was canned on October 1st, 2021. And yes, it has held itself up. So it is winning.
Yes. Oh my God. You know what's interesting though? Like we both brewed an amazing beer with Oak Park, right? And it's funny because we both ended up choosing to do a strong ale. So it was funny because we both were trying to knock it out the park with ABV. I think mine was 13.5. It was my Scarlet. And then here comes D talking about, oh, you ain't got nothing on this. You ain't got nothing on this. And he comes up with his strong ale. And I'm like, ooh. But I had to say, I think, a lot of times when you try different types of beers and people, influencers or other types of people go and make beers, and you're like, okay, well, let's see how good this is. Like, I really thoroughly enjoy D's. Like, it wasn't boozy. Like some people, when they go with high ABV, it was a beautiful color to it, as you can see him pouring it up in the upper corner. But I got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I also want to give a shout out to Oak Park because they are really big on their ABCs, which is art, beer, and community. And they are heavily giving back to the community. They do tons of events that highlight women businesses, just people within the community. So I always like to give a shout out to Raj and Jeff and tell them that they are fantastic people. So thank you for giving me the opportunity with my small brand to brew, and also for giving Beer Talk Now, aka D, the opportunity. So we always got to show love to them because they definitely looked out for us.
And last but not least, I see you, Brick. I see you. All right, Brick Terrarium Beer Hut, Alpharetta, Georgia.
Hey, Brick.
Alpharetta, Georgia. We love it. But anyway, let's get into it because David's sitting here like, what the hell? But Najee, we'll run our mouth about craft beer and won't even get to the damn comic book we supposed to.
No, that's not true. We get to it. Yeah, we just go off way topic every question.
I'm gonna bring it up because I just want to just jump right into it. What is the significance with the starting off this series with the not known unknown truth of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. And let me move my finger because that's just horrible. There we go. Bam. There
Yeah, get that finger out of there.
Yeah. So what was that significance? I feel like you're trying to bring us along to really get our brains wrapped around this whole violence of humanity, but I could be completely wrong. So I'm gonna let you talk, and I'm not gonna zoom in on you because Onaji didn't like that last time. He wanted the family feel. He didn't like he didn't like when we just put the camera on him. So go ahead and do what you got to do while I drink my beer.
So I've always been a fan of Ancient Aliens. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that show, Ancient Aliens, and I've always been a huge fan of the theories of how man has evolved. If you look at it, supposedly man evolved from ape, and then there were several different versions of man leading to eventually Cro-Magnon that splintered off. And so as I was sitting and crafting this story, I was using that as a way of bringing into the world the heroes, the offshoot of some of the creatures that you see. And, Neanderthal, no one really knows what happened to the Neanderthals. They just one day up and disappeared. Poof. And so I was like, what if we explored that? What if we could explain the mystery behind what happened to the Neanderthals and look at how they have scientifically looked at some of us who were walking around that are now humans, as they call us, Homo-Sapiens, have Neanderthal genes in our system. So for me, in developing the characters and people with power, I was like, let's not do mutants. Let's use scientific ideas to explain how some of these people evolved.
Oh, and I absolutely love that idea, because with me, with my science background, we think about genes that have been turned off, right? Because they no longer serve a purpose in the current form that we're in. And there's tons of research that's going into this right now of if we turn on these genes, what happens?
Right.
Especially when you look at how genetically similar we are to many species on this planet. So if you think about with sharks, their ability to constantly regrow their teeth. I mean, could you imagine if we had that ability to do so? Or with certain types of lizards and starfish who, when they lose a limb, they can regrow. I mean, that type of stuff to me is interesting. But then you also have to say to yourself, what was the trigger to turn that off? Was there a real reason for that, right? So when we start to reawaken some of these things, are we actually causing more harm than good? Right. So I absolutely love the take that you're taking with this, that, we have these old genes, we have these old parts that are part of us. So, what is that? What does that look like? What does that mean? And I like the idea, instead of it being a mutant where you had a mutation, it's just, what if you've reawakened something that was old? And I love that concept because it's very, very different, but there's a lot of science that you can draw from nowadays to really help propel that story to the fullest.
Right. And as, one of the things you had said earlier before we came on, you were kind of mad that I left it on a cliffhanger in the first book. Well,
that's right.
I'm going to let you know a secret. When I originally wrote the story, it was 160 pages.
I love it.
It was 160
you ain't got nothing.
Chapter 1. I love it. That would have been great. I would have read that thing and I would have felt like, yes, we did it.
It was 160 pages, but our main artist, Sean Aline, came to me and said, bruh, it's going to take us like 4 years to draw this thing out. Can we break it up? So we broke it up. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is you've got enough material for a very well thought out story. And that we don't have to worry. Right. We don't have to worry about, I'm still creatively working on this. This is like, it's going to be okay. Because you know how sometimes people come up with these books, right? And we one of the ones that had the biggest lag, I think, was the Game of Thrones, where they were like, the show was speeding them up.
Yeah.
We had that problem, it seems.
No, you don't, because if you look right behind me, you see the book isn't totally mapped out on my door.
Man, let's talk. Hold on, we gotta zoom in. Hold on.
I gotta say, can we snapshot and zoom in?
Yeah, that's the book that's mapped out. So book Book 2 is already done. Book 3,
Yeah.
the artist is working on. Book 4 and 5 are already written. Book 6
Oh, nice.
is half done. And the other 6 books are in outline form.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. Now, are you going to do any of the future books in color, or are you going to stick with this black and white aesthetic that you got?
So I was just throwing all these questions out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going off topic. I'm sorry.
Originally, the idea was that we were going to stick with black and white, but we were gradually going to bring little bits of color into the book. And then by the end of the second and third book, the book would be fully colored.
I love that.
But-
It's almost like when you think about TV, how we started off in black and white, and then they did that transition over to color. Oh, I love that. That's dope. I like that.
He's thinking ahead. He's sucking us in with black and white, and then bam, hit you with some color, and you be like, I lost my mind.
You're like, oh, my retinas.
Then we
That's
jack
what
up the
they burn
price.
it. They burn it with the color.
Segueing to the topic. Thank you, Seth. No, I'm just staying on topic with these questions.
Yeah.
So
Excuse
I
me.
really wanted to know the cultures and civilizations that inspired the sword, shield, circle, and eye crest that is seen by Professor Warren and his search for the truth, if I can say that, because I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I'm trying to find a good page that shows it. The
So
truth.
that is the Eye of Ra.
Yeah, the Eye of Ra. That's what
right.
it was. I got
That's
Yes.
the Eye of Ra. And I'm going to give a little spoiler here. So the Eye of Ra.
Uh-oh. Put up the spoiler alert.
Wait, hold on, no, I can't do it because then I'm gonna knock up the backdrop. But go ahead.
Disclaimer alert, the Eye of Ra is part of a secret group that, as you know, the Necronomicon was in the sarcophagus. So the Eye of Ra is a symbol of a group called the Order of Solomon, which was a spin-off of the Knights Templar.
Ooh, nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which leads into another society, which is called the Midnight Society, which is a total different spin-off, which will come down the road later. So
I like that.
I was trying to get it. I thought, I was like European again, the sword and the shield. The Eye of Ra, I was like Egyptian, got it. The circle, though, what about that circle that's around? Because is there any significance to that, or is that just like something?
It's just the symbol. The circle around it was just the symbol of putting the Eye of Ra in the circle. So it's like it's a giant pendant, basically on top of the sarcophagus.
Now, when you think about the Eye of Ra, right? And of course, people will probably associate that with Egyptians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about how Ra has been portrayed in movies, and I think because I was bring out my little bit of nerdiness with Stargate, and how you talk about just a little bit, how he was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie, right? I think, when you think about what he actually symbolizes, what from Ra were you trying to pull in, if you can, without giving spoilers? What about Ra would you want people to kind of take away from this?
So this is going to, I think, answer one of the questions that we later are going to talk about. But given that I chose the Eye of Ra as a symbol, because I wanted to bring in Moorish culture into it as well, because the Order of Solomon is actually more made up of Moorish, and it's an offshoot of the Knights Templar, and it was set in Egypt. I'm not in Egypt, in the Middle East during the Crusades.
Right.
And the actual, I believe the Necronomicon was in one of the cities that the Crusaders fought for. So I was trying to bring that aspect in, and also given the history of racism that H.P. Lovecraft has, I was trying to take from the forefront and move Black and brown people to the forefront as heroes, as main characters, instead of how they're viewed normally in the Lovecraftian world of H.P. Lovecraft, where they're viewed as secondary, ignorant, bestial, just minions of white educated people who want to bring back Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep.
Right.
and also give Black and brown people more of a voice as the main characters and the heroes instead of these old white intelligent characters that seem to stand in the forefront of Lovecraft's writings.
Yeah. And I think that also is a nice way, because when you think about just outside of your works, but just in general, how we're portrayed, right, in history, how we're always viewed as secondary. We've talked a lot about this on our show when we talk about how are Black people portrayed in the future. We're very rarely there, right? We're rarely in the future. But when you think about all the things that we have contributed just to culture, to technology, to advancements, it's shocking to see that we're not there. So I love this idea, especially with the time jumps that you did throughout the book, to kind of show how we're there, regardless, from history all the way to the future. And I would love, and I'm curious if there's going to be any talks of like immortality or anything, because when you think about just the idea of finding old tombs, and you think about some stories that we've always have heard, there's always this idea or theme of immortality. So are we actually getting to the idea of being able to tap into that? I know you can't answer, but that's just something that made me think of that when I saw that, because I was like, ooh, I hope we get into that, because that would be cool to have Black people achieve immortality. Just saying.
Well, I'll give you a hint.
Loving this conversation, by the way.
That child that you see in that story will play a significant role throughout time.
Hold on, let me go to that kid.
You're looking at Naji's face. Naji's face is like, what? What you talking about, Jay?
He said, "What book you in? Because we only made it up to 4, 5, 6."
I'm trying to find the kid.
I'm gonna go back and have to look. I'm gonna go back and be like, okay, where's the kid?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the kid too. Is that it with the Neanderthals? I'm up here turning. Now you got me interested. All right. Oh, in the backdrop, is the kid in the backdrop with it when they cook?
There's a glimpse of the child in book 1. You just gotta look for it.
There you go. Right.
Oh my God!
In the back corner right there. Is that the one? Yeah. See, okay. See, look at him. He's setting us up. Okay. That's you.
He said, pay attention to all pieces.
I like where you're going. You're making me be like, did you not pay attention to that? Bam! I'm hitting you with it. Now I'm about to tie.
And we know D don't be paying attention to the small details.
Nah, sometimes it depends. It depends. Like I didn't even. I saw the kid, but I was just like, I thought it was another.
At least he went to the right page. I give you that.
I thought it was another adult that just got with the arrows by the Homo-Sapiens. I'm just saying they was killing everybody. I'm just keeping it 100. All right. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Let me just put it to you this way with Decimation Earth. Every single thing that's on that page, you see. Pay close attention to it, because it may be the minor, it's the slowest thing. Something's going to come back.
See,
I love that. I love when people pull in.
He's like, let me see what else is in there.
Exactly. You know, get it.
I gotta have at our next team meet. I need to talk to you.
So that actually ties in, since we were talking about H.P. Lovecraft. You have, again, inspired by him. You mentioned that in your author's notes, and I mean, for everybody, when you all watch this on the replay and everything, this man has a whole page of author notes. Like, come on, you got the team in the background too. You got a whole page for them to show the whole team. Come on, that's a beautiful thing. You mentioned several quotes or small snippets of parts that H.P. Lovecraft was talking about in certain books. I was very interested in the that which, let me pull it up because I know I got it on there, but I got to read it word from word because I was like, what is he talking about? I'm like, is he talking about lie like I lie down, or lie like I lie? And it's no, that's the wrong one. Got to the wrong page. Got it. That is not dead which can internally lie, and with strange aeons, if I pronounce that correctly, even death may die. And I'm just like, man, that's just a powerful quote. I don't know what the hell it means, but yeah. What will these quotes that you have shown us, since you're saying to pay attention to details, and I definitely paid attention to all these quotes, how will the quote about the dark universe, that eternally is that can lie, and then also the quote about fear, like the oldest emotion of our species is fear. That was a good quote as well. What significance will they play, or how will they be incorporated into the story?
Well, the significance of all the quotes, especially those two, are giving you a glimpse into those time periods, what to expect in those time periods. Let's start with the fear. We're dealing with cosmic horror. And when I use that quote as fear, cosmic horror is different from what normal horror is. Cosmic horror is more about like the sense of dread, foreboding, and like, you know how like you see something out the corner of your eye?
Yes.
And then you try to see, and then you look and it's not there, but you can just see it, but you can't get a glimpse of it. That's what I see as fear, is the fact that if you could see it and actually go through that door, that what you see would be something that you don't want to experience. All right. I mean, if you look at movies like Annihilation or Dagon or any of the Lovecraftian cosmic horror movies, there's always this point where the characters, I really don't want to see this. I really don't want to experience it. But for some reason, I'm drawn to it. And then when I go through that door, what I experience is beyond normal human capacity. I can't even put it into words. Creatures, you know, the fear, the dread, and even the abominations, I would say, or eldritch horrors that you experience, you can't even put into words. You can't even use the word grotesque to describe them, because they're so overwhelming to the human mind. And and that's why I chose both of those quotes. You know, even death can die. You know,
I was like, man, that was crazy. And I mean,
death can die. That is deep right there. That death can die. I'm dead, but I can still. But death can die itself.
So
go ahead, Seth. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
So with that, right? If we're going, because I feel like that quote, especially, that is not dead, which can eternally lie, and with strange aeons, even death may die. When I read that, and I'm just getting the first chapter, I'm like, okay, there's, because you mentioned that with the Neanderthals and the Homo-Sapiens about what the theories are of how the Neanderthals were just either died off or they were killed by the Homo-Sapiens, which you show in the first chapter. But for that part about even death may die, I was taking it in my perspective of, okay, there's a lie that has been told, and that lie it's eternal, because you don't know the truth is buried so much that the lie itself is now the truth. The lie is dead. The truth is in my mind alive. It's not necessarily buried. It's just nobody talks about it. And then that part of when you say, well, even death may die, it's almost like even that lie can die again, and like even cover the truth like another layer. And I know that didn't sound a whole bunch of correct of people probably like, what the hell is he talking about? But that's how I took those layers of that, as far as and I even wrote in the grabber that I got you when people read the description, when I talked about, where the truth can have death knock at your door, but a lie can hide the truth. And it was like, that's what I got from it. So as I started reading, and you jump forward to the present day with some of the main characters, and then just this conversation with the and I won't give all the spoilers, but the conversation with a certain biologist and all these things of this nature, I was like, and here it goes, because they're focused on this one thing, but I feel like I'm just about to be going down a rabbit hole of lies, truth. Is it the truth? Is it a lie? And I'm just going to be bouncing around so much that, because I've been told this lie for generations, centuries, and so forth, and I'm referring to the series, that to find the truth, it's like the truth is death, but then the truth also sets you free, because it will kill the lie, really, even though the lie that was told is like, it's crazy.
But you know what? I think it made me think when I read that about a quote that I just watched. It popped up in the movie Operation Mincemeat, which is about an idea of deception. It was like one of the greatest deceptions ever in World War II. And there was a line that the guy said that I think captures this perfectly. What Dee was trying to say is, the truth is surrounded by a bodyguard of lies, right? Because a bodyguard is going to try to protect you getting past this. So like, we don't want you to see that. So I think that is beautiful in a sense, because there's, when you think about, deception as for what it is, the whole point is to mislead you, to misguide you, so you don't know what's really there. And, this can be something as small as a person when you're dating. And we see this all the time. People put on this facade of who they are. But over time,
go to a job.
But then, like, over time, because they have to maintain this lie, for some people it's very hard to do, right? But for others who we all know are special in that category, can maintain it. But the thing is that it's an art form of being able to maintain that. So I like the idea, because they keep saying this throughout, if you knew, it's going to blow your mind. And you have to say to yourself, when you think about death, dying, it's like, it's not in a sense of, oh my God, here's the end. It's like, here it is taking you to another plane, another plane of truth, another plane of existence. Right. So to me, I'm very curious to see what that is, because the fact that when the Homo-Sapiens killed the Neanderthals, I love the quote that it was more sinister than what you think. Like, the truth is much more sinister. And so to me, it's like,
let me get to that
clearly it has, right, there's in it, and it gets into that idea of what you're talking about with fear, right? And I think that with fear itself, you think about, like you said, you see something out the corner of your eye and you're like, what is that? But I also think too, when you think about naturally or instinctively, when we meet people, and they always talk about auras, right? And it's like that vibes didn't sit well with me. Like, you feel something in your gut and you can't pinpoint it, but it's there. Something is telling you this person's bad news, it's bad juju. And you have to say to yourself, well, what is that? What? Right? But what about this is speaking to me on that level where I get that feeling of like, I need to stay away, right? Or if I need to pay attention when you're out and about places. So I love the idea of that fear being there, because fear is a natural emotion, right? Like, that's there. And I think for some people, and I think what's so interesting about it, they talked about this, it's like you can be in such a feared state that your body, you can basically die from fear because you've taken it to that extreme. Right. So if we're talking about those horrors of fear, it's like, are we going to see something like that where a person gets so pushed into it? And like you said, you can't even put a word to it. You say it's beyond grotesque. Are we going to see people, dying from that, or like, being pushed into a plane that they didn't even know existed? So I'm really excited about that, honestly. I'm excited with the way that those quotes were, and it just made me think about some of that stuff that I read or have seen in movies.
Yeah, and all I can say is you're going to go on a journey with our heroes. And by the time it ends, you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be one of those things that just blows your mind.
Okay.
And all I can say for anybody who picks up Decimation Earth, we're one of the most, we're different from everybody else in Konkret. And when I say that, Decimation Earth is more of, you have to pay attention to what the story says. You have to pay attention to the visuals. It makes you think, and makes you question. The way Dee took that quote is exactly how I wanted someone to view that quote. And the way you are
me the whole time.
Yeah, and the way you were breaking it down is exactly the way I wanted someone to just like, oh, well, this is what I see it, and this is how I view it. And as we take you on that journey, we want you to question everything.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
life, right? And as you question it all, nothing.
Question it all.
I mean,
nothing is the truth, only in your mind. Anyway,
I was going to say, Inception did that for a lot of people, right? When you watch that, people are like, I don't even know, like the ending. You're like, oh, I want to believe, and then you get this hope, right? So you have fear, and then you have hope. Like, I hope that's the route they're going, and you're like, I honestly, I don't know. And I love when you can do that with stories, because everybody's interpretation can be a little bit different, but I think that's also because of their own life experiences that really bring that to life. So I love that.
Najee, if you got anything to say, you go ahead and jump in. I know we've been.
Oh no, I was listening because my phone has been going off like crazy because of my family. So yeah, so I'm I'm trying to pay attention to two things at once.
And Najee holding it down. I got to always Odina. Volume 4 right now? Where we at?
Issue 4 is done. Issues 5 and 6 are almost completed.
Can't wait.
Dang, you guys are pumping out some material, man.
The circle. Shout out to Odina. You know, and then you know, it's going down. Now this question, we got to talk about it because we mentioned H.P. Lovecraft and just pure racist. I mean, was white supremacy, white is right. I mean, even one of the things that you mentioned, which I won't repeat, what he wrote, like how. So you did speak about this, but just even in a little more detail, because again, chapter 1, it's really just introducing us to the concept of like the beginning and what that beginning really is or is not. And then you're getting into the main characters, but how will this series confront that, and how will it confront it if it does?
Well, the series from the beginning confronts racism because from the front point, our characters are black and brown. The leads are our characters. And the way the book is broken down is the past is Neanderthals, the present is H.P. Lovecraft, and the future is Gideon. So that's how the time periods work. And so as we go through the time periods, you've already seen a form of us dealing with racism between the Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals. And then as we get into H.P. Lovecraft, which is set in Florida during the 1930s, we're going to delve deep into racism. And book 2, I think it's book 3 that we really get into it. Okay. So book 2 sets it up, and then book 3, we really get into it. In the future, as the story grows, we will see obstacles coming in the way of how Gideon deals with them. We're going to talk about white identity politics. We're going to cover how Lovecraft viewed black and brown people, LGBTQ. Yeah, you know, because we do have LGBTQ characters in our story. We'll be introducing. And I think one of the things that when I talked to Sean is we felt that just the way we had set up the story, I had set up the story and how we were creating the characters, that we were already taking it on with H.P. Lovecraft. But I'm just one of many authors that have gone out there and called out and said, hey, yeah, you say Lovecraft has a lot of influence in the horror community, but yet you make excuses for him saying, well, he was a man of his time and he could have changed. That's what a lot of people give him that excuse for. But I don't give him a pass for that. Right. What I do, just like the author of Lovecraft Country. Now, I'm probably going to lose some of your fans here. I was not a huge fan of Lovecraft Country. Just because I read the book.
Gotcha.
See, I haven't read the book. Yeah, but I still wasn't.
Before the TV show came on. Because the author in the book really delved into racism. You know, there is a scene in the book where the main character is driving back to Chicago, and he gets a flat tire, and everybody goes by him. So he walks into town, and he tries to buy a tire at a tire shop. And the gentleman happens to be white and happened to be seen, and they were in the same infantry unit at different times. But the white man who owns the garage still refuses to sell to him and tells him, well, there ain't where my units and everything. And it's just like, you see him like, I fought for my country. I did this. And, you know, he's angry, you know, and then they really delve into the Green Book and how the Green Book played a role in that time. So I think they did a lot of good jobs with talking about racism, but there were some things that they left out. And that's what we are trying to do with this story. is bring it to the forefront, because Lovecraft used these creatures as a way of demonizing black and brown. Uses a way as to promote racism, and this is a thing that a lot of people don't know. He was anti-Semitic, but yet his wife was Jewish.
Oh, that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon at all for anybody.
It's not uncommon. We know it's not uncommon, but not a lot of people know that about Lovecraft.
But
that his wife was Jewish.
The Proud Boys. I mean, his wife is black. I mean,
but you know what? I find it interesting when you talk about the idea of them diving a little bit more into the fact that these two were both a part of the military. I mean, when you think about what happened in World War II, and you had a lot of black military people who were overseas. They were dropping pamphlets and propaganda to say, why are you fighting for a country that doesn't even acknowledge you, review you as human? So it's very interesting, right, that, like you said, and you talk about, Lovecraft being a man of the times, that people like to give him a pass. And you said you don't want to do that. And I do think, again, I have to agree with you on that, because you had several people during those times who did not agree, right, who said, hey, this is something that is clearly and terribly wrong, and who actually tried to stand up and say something, who was on the right side of history. So I do find it very interesting when people do give a pass, because you hear this type of stuff all the time. But I'm like, here we are, a lot of those same themes that we know has been a part of history are starting to come up again more to the forefront. It's not like they disappeared. Let's be real. They're just now coming back to the forefront to be more acceptable. Heavily. So you have to say to yourself, now people of our time, when people in the future see what we've gone through and we're still around, like when we get into our 50s and 60s and 70s, we're going to be people of that time, right? So we have to say to ourselves, well, what are we going to be doing at that time? Are we going to continue to play into those tropes, right? So that I love how you're bringing it up and how you say you want to make it more of the forefront, because, again, we draw a lot of inspiration from real life. So as you're drawing this stuff in, it's like you need to make sure that these things are known. It's sure it's a form of escapism, but we also have to be very mindful that regardless of what realm you're in, they're probably still going to have these type of issues, because if they're coming from us, right, that's what's going to happen. I mean, people like to talk about AI, how it's going to be revolutionary, but I'm like, but who's doing the coding?
Oh, yeah.
Let's think about that for a second, right? Like, it's so
social media and everything. So I mean, that's all AI and algorithms that are just doing the same thing currently with exactly what you're talking about, Sud. So it's already here. You can't take it out. And that's one of the things, sidebar, and then I'll stop talking about Star Trek, which I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and I always want them to do a series that really showed the transition of when racism, that whole aspect of depleting racism, because Star Trek literally went from humanity being this democratic, social, communist, everything, to just militaristic, clear across the board. And it doesn't show anything where anybody is necessarily, because you're black or because you're Mexican or whatever, that you can't be a captain. I mean, Geordie LaForge's mom was a captain. His dad was a general. But I really wanted to see that, so that we could see, like, how was that overcome? And that could be like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year series. But I know it'd be they won't do it right. Yeah, I just don't think they would do it, because people, and I just won't say people, because white people be like, roll their eyes and be like, oh my God, even in Star Trek. But it's like, that's reality, and that's the thing. So I'm glad you're doing that. And I won't talk anymore about it, because we'll go. But go ahead, Suds, and then I'll.
But you know what? This is the last thing I'll say, because I think it's pretty interesting that you're talking about this, because in Lovecraft country, right, we finally get it where a black character has magic, like can do magic, and you're like, oh, this is cool. Oh, and he's tied into the direct bloodline.
Yeah.
And it's like, that to me was something, because and even then, even though he had the purest of blood leading back through and had the powers, they still were like, no, we don't want you. And it's like, this dude can be the next coming for you. No, we don't want it. We don't want it. Why? Because he was black. And then it's like the way that the series ended, which by now we could talk about it, but I'll still say spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah.
They killed a character off. And I'm like, I'm so tired of us being able to reach these new levels in media And then as soon as we get it, it gets taken away, which of course you could say that happens in real life, but it's like, Jesus Christ, can we at least have some place where we reach these high levels of enlightenment or magic or whatever you want to call it and not have it stripped away? I mean, that to me, it's just like, again, when are we going to be able to not have things tied to Black trauma and pain or death? Like, I want to see something that's more like, hey, we are pushing the boundaries of what we have here. Nope. Nope. And I think with your type of work, we're doing that. And I think you're showing from history, present, and future that we're going to be able to do that, right? So I love the fact that we're getting this type of media, and I hope somewhere down the road you guys can get this like into an actual animated form, because that.
Oh yeah, we talking.
Right, I think would be really cool, because it would be a different way for us to see ourselves, right? So that's something, Yeah,
I totally agree with you on that. And when I was writing Decimation Earth, I think my writing partner Barry Newkirk and I, in the back of our minds, Barry at the time was putting together a show for, was trying to pitch a show to Adult Swim at the time. And in my mind, as we were working and we were talking, I could not see Decimation Earth being a film. I could see it being anime. I could see it being anime because of all the sophistications of how Sean and I worked together to design the costumes for the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things that you can't necessarily do, no matter how much you use CGI and everything.
Yeah,
it's not. And so, yeah. I mean, for us with Decimation Earth, it's a quest to get to the end. And at the end, the question you're going to ask yourself is, was this real, or is this just,
perfect?
I
like it already.
I love it.
A mind trick, mess up your mind.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Well, we'll go on to the next question. And then,
the last question is just, I mean, you can keep talking. I just wanted to put this up about just why choose Konkret Comics to showcase? I mean, your Decimation Studios. I saw that in the background. I was like, wait a minute. I always love collaboration, okay? Because we need to unify to get to the goal that we need to get to. But why Konkret Comics?
So when we established Decimation Studios, we were looking for someone to help us publish the book. We had thrown a wide net to everybody out there. Source Point Press at one time was interested in publishing us. Penguin's publishing Soaring Penguin was interested in publishing us, but they came to us and said, hey, look, you can either do Lovecraft or superheroes. You can't have both. So Barry and I were like, nah, whatever.
Don't limit.
And it was FTO, D. Murray, that came to me, and my buddy Wally McNair and I and Danny Quick had been following Konkret, and we're like, look at these guys. These guys are going crazy on Kickstarters, man. They're just look what Anansi did. Look what all these guys did. And we're just like, man. And then out of nowhere, D and I were having a conversation, and I brought up Konkret. He's like, man, that's who you should talk to. He's like, I could set it up. You want to talk to Alonzo?
Finally.
I was like, yeah. And so he was like, Lonzo, Dave, Lonzo. Lonzo's like, man, I love your work. Let's do this. And that's how I came aboard.
See, that's what I'm talking about, right? When you talk about
5-1, bam,
right? But you know what? That gets me a lot of times when you think about some of these industries, right? Like we think about beer, when you think about comics, it's a small industry. Yeah. As big as it is, it's still very small. Like who knows who, right? Like everybody knows everybody, right? But then at the same time, you still have it where people get this I want to be the only type of mentality. And I love to see when you get collectives like this, where you're not going to limit a creator, an artist on their, what makes them them. I mean, that's why you chose them, is because of what they came with. And of course, you want to stick within the aesthetics of the brand, so to speak, but you don't want to limit their creativity too much, right? So I love the fact that, one, you guys knew of each other's work, right? And that when it came together, it wasn't where it was like, oh, well, we need to have this, like, who's going to be ownership of this? It was like it worked as a family, right? And I love hearing these type of things because, again, we rarely are able to celebrate or hear of these type of combinations that are happening, right? So to hear that you were like, hey, I would love to work with them, and that was a mutual feeling, I think speaks volumes of this. And I think the fact that you're able to, you came, like you said, this large book, and you're like, well, we need to chop this up. I mean, that just shows you the longevity of your partnership that's going to be there for quite some time. So that just warrants my heart to hear that.
Yeah, and so I think the way I approach this is as Robert Kurtman. I'm down with Konkret, but also I want to be everywhere. I'm like, hey, he's like, you know how Wu-Tang was. Wu-Tang came together, did an album, but then Meth did his thing, and Ghostface Killer did his thing. Oh, you're Meth?
I'm Meth.
I'm not just saying he meth because he said I got the talent. I hold down the women.
I know that.
Sexy.
He said, hold on, let me just tell you who I'm not. Okay.
Well, I got to smile when you said when you get 50 and 60 because I'm gonna be 51 this year. So
you don't look a day past 35.
Wait, hold the
35.
phone. You said you gonna be 51, dude. I'm thinking you around our age.
35. I thought it was 35. 35.
Yeah, that's what everybody thinks, but no, I'm 51. But yeah, it's just
you can make it past the half century. I'm hoping to make it today. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to make it, but you're like, shit, the way this world going right now.
I know.
But these white people acting, not the world, the white people.
Well, no, you got pandemics going on too now. Let's not act like Corona's still not out there because people acting like it ain't.
That was colonizers not handling their business. But anyway, that's a sidebar. Go ahead, keep talking, Dave.
So it's like I've got Decimation Earth is such a huge universe, and there's so many things we can do with it. I mean, Anaji and I have been talking about him taking one of our characters and working on it. Danny Cavalvo is working on a side project right now on something that's set in the prehistoric period. And
come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You're going prehistoric?
Yeah. So there's so many things that we can do with the Decimation Earth world. We look at it like it's Star Wars. I mean, there's so many different ways we can do with the characters. I already know how it's going to end. And it's going to end in a way that either we can just end it there, but if we have enough popularity, if we have enough popularity, we can come back with another series.
Now here's my question for you. Mm-hmm. You've written it in a way where you can either end it or set it up, right? Mm-hmm. But like deep down inside of you, what do you really want? Do you really want to end it and move on to something completely different? Or do you really want to try and take this to a whole nother level and say, hey, you thought your mind was blown then, your whole existence is going to get blown apart on this next one? What do you want to do?
I think I want to get to the end and see where I'm at with the story, because there are so many pieces and ideas that I've started. I've started doing start working on one shots on the main character, and I start working on another one shot for one of the main characters you're going to meet in book 3.
Okay.
And so I am slowly putting this together, and it's evolving all the time. Even though I've got it,
mapped
laid out on my door,
right?
It keeps evolving in my mind, and I already know how it ends. I have it vividly in my mind. I've already talked to Sean and the other artist, Bernie Cook, about how I want to end the book.
Now, does Onaji know how it ends?
No, Onaji, no. The one thing one thing it is Lonzo and Onaji and Jamel have to pull things out of me because I'm so close. If I tell you, I feel like I'm giving away a state secret, and my co-writing partner, Barry, is just dude, come on. If we're going to write this, you got to tell me what's going on. You just can't.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, and it's interesting to have a co-writer because in this book, because the way I write, I have an outline, but I throw everything up against the wall. And then Barry comes in and is like, no, that's got to come out. No, that's got to come out. And we got to tie this up.
I like it.
Oh, so who keeps you straight? Okay, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
You straight.
So you're the one who fragments the timelines, and Barry's like, "Let me get this back." Okay, there we go.
You did that Dr. Strange
line.
Right, and some people have come to me and said, maybe you should just focus on one timeline. But the way I've written this, it would not work if I didn't have those timelines, because those timelines are eventually going to come into one, or eventually going to merge into one.
Like it.
Beautiful.
You know, it's going to explain that. Those two timelines are going to merge into one, which will explain how we got to the future.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And so that's why it's important that we give you those two timelines. We're not going to give you everything in those timelines. There will be other things like we'll introduce other books that will give you more in-depth things on those timelines.
Right.
But right now, we're just giving you glimpses to get to the main one that's going to be the future, which will become the present.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
With that, you know, last but not least, you know, you've answered all my questions. I have no more. Good. And Sudz actually went to the question I was going to skip because you already talked about what you were going to do for the series. But I was like, let me change the question around so I can get it. And there goes my co-host. She's like, Daddy, it's time to go. But last but not least, let the audience know. Again, we know Konkret Comics, konkretcomics.com. Hold on, Daddy's almost finished.
He's like, oh,
I'm almost, just give Daddy like one more minute. But for,
she's like, no.
For yourself, like, where can they reach you? Like, what? How can we contact you? What, you know, just go ahead and give your spill.
Follow, subscribe. Where can they get you?
I'm on Twitter at Decimation E. I am on Instagram at Decimation IX, or Decimation Earth IX. You can reach me there at either Twitter or Instagram. I always love hearing from the fans. I always love people sending me questions, and I love answering them. So those are the two main places you can reach me.
Nice, love it. Because they always say Twitter's like the battleground where people can just go and argue. So I always love when people do that on Twitter. I'm like, I love it. I haven't gotten into Twitter. I like to go to read some stuff on there, but I haven't really gotten into it. Instagram's my spot, but that's cool though. I love to hear when authors or artists are open to getting questions from fans. But have you gotten any crazy questions from anybody yet? Like anybody like, because you know that's when you really feel like you've made it, when people start asking you like some weird stuff. And you're like, I don't know where that's coming from.
No, I haven't really got any crazy questions. The ones I've gotten mostly is like,
Najee, like, well, wait a minute.
Have I gotten some crazy questions, Najee? I don't think I have. I mean, I've had people ask me, tell me there's time travel in this. Tell me there's magic. Tell me there's supernatural. Because if it is, I'll
dude, read. Just read.
Read. But no, I really haven't had any crazy questions, and I wish I would get some crazy questions. And Najee, are you thinking of one?
I've gotten crazy questions, but I can't repeat it because there's a child around. So
nice. So we're gonna put that in the private chat then for sure. But I mean, like overall, I'm really excited for it. I read it. I was extremely excited about it. I did the digital copy to make sure I got it in time to read, but I will go back and actually get the physical copy because that's just, I love to do that. So it's just like, I get to double and, support by getting multiple copies. So, but I'm really excited to see what comes out. I think overall the stuff that we have read from Konkret Comics has been phenomenal, from artwork to the stories. So I honestly, it's been great. I mean, a lot of times you want to support people that look like you, and sometimes it'd be like, it could be better. But this is actually some top quality material. So I'm very excited that you have joined into the fam, and I'm excited to see the next books and see what crazy trips we're going to take with this, because I got some ideas, but I could be completely wrong, and I love when I'm wrong. But I also like it when it plays into it. I'm like, ooh, yes. But, I just like to be surprised. So I'm excited for it. So thank you for being on the show, Najee. You are always a joy to have on, especially when you got your pineapple hair.
I gotta come back with my drink, and we got to talk about some things.
Hey, let's do it, man. Whenever you ready. Like again, David, I want to tell you this too.
Always.
Like we are here.
Whenever you need me, just shout.
Yeah, we're here for y'all. We're gonna add value by always promoting Black artists at all times. There's so many comic book artists. There's so many graphic designers. I'm reaching out more. I'm like, I need to buy their book first. I'm always like, come on the show, but I was like, let me buy your book first. And
you're like, hold on, let me actually get this so I can read it and know what we're talking about.
But show you that I really want to, I want to look at your work, and I want to, just praise it, because we're not here to critique it. We're just here to say thank you. I mean, because again, it's not easy creating, and I think a lot of people think it is, but.
Nice when you have a full-time job too.
Come on, man.
So you got a full-time job doing the seed, then that makes it even more, I think, special, because you got a full-time job.
I got 2 14-year-old twins and and a wife. So
you got a whole fam. You're like, I got kids, I got a wife I gotta watch after, and I got a job. Mortgage.
Before we get too much longer on this, I got to cut y'all off because we already passed the hour mark. But anyway, this has been another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. Thank you so much, David and Onaji. Shout out to Konkret Comics, man. If you haven't got Decimation Earth, you need to get it. Chapter 2 is going to be on its way soon, and he's already finished about 4, 5, 6 books. I'm in chapters, so you're losing out. But with that, we're going to get into this wonderful outro, just like we do the wonderful intro from KinkySudz herself. And we will catch y'all every other Friday, even though we record whenever I feel like it, on Black Nerd Friday. And we out.